Hello everyone, I'm Salim Kikeke. Welcome to Focus on Africa, our top stories. A fire in a school in a suburb of the Liberian capital Monrovia has killed at least 27 children. Anger in Nigeria as women and men demonstrate over the Port Harcourt hotel murders. 3 people have been arrested.
We're demanding that the killers should be found. We're demanding that the killings must stop. We're demanding that people should be held liable when our daughters die on their premises.
Africa tech talent firm Andela cuts 400 jobs despite 2019 revenue of more than $50 million. Also in the program, Biting Back. We meet the team in Kenya providing a speedy response to the hidden danger of snake bites in the rural areas. And in sport, more Champions League action as Spurs travel without Ivory Coast international Serge Aurier for their tie against Olympiacos. Thank you for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. At least 27 children have died after a fire broke out at a boarding school in Liberia. Police say the blaze started about midnight and gutted a dormitory and a school building where students slept in Painesville on the outskirts of the capital Monrovia. The police say only 2 students and their teacher managed to escape from the blaze. Jonathan Pelela reports from Painesville, Liberia.
They wept in shock and disbelief as ambulances evacuated the bodies of the children. The fire broke out in the middle of the night and gutted the boarding house, which is attached to a mosque in Painesville, a suburb east of the capital, Monrovia. Officials say the students at the Quranic school are between 10 and 20 years old. According to reports, 2 other students survived along with a teacher.
We heard a noise outside, so I was thinking about armed robber because the armed robber becoming at the 5th time. So before I could say that one day, one of my daughters said they are saying about fire, they're talking about fire. That is the time that my wife to open the bag door, we saw a lot of smoke coming out.
The Liberian President George Weah has visited the scene and said he was praying for the families of the children who had died.
We want to just let the family know that we are with them.
Police are still investigating what caused the blaze. Jonathan Pelela, Painesville, Liberia.
Around 300 people took to the streets in Port Harcourt, Nigeria today to protest against the killings of at least 8 women in hotels in the city. The protesters were also angry at how the police have handled the situation since the first report of the killings in August. Women's groups are calling for action to find the killers. On Wednesday, police announced that they had arrested a 3rd man in connection with the murders. Karina Igonikon sent this report from Port Harcourt.
More than 70 women groups and NGOs embarked on a peace walk to protest the serial killings in the city and demand that the government and security agencies live up to their responsibilities and apprehend the serial killers and make the city safe.
We're demanding action. We're demanding that action is taken. We're demanding that the killers should be found. We're demanding that the killings must stop. We're demanding that people should be held liable when our daughters die on their premises.
At least 8 women have been found strangled in a similar way in different hotel rooms around the city since August. The protesters were told of a 3rd arrest as they marched to the city's police headquarters.
This morning, we recorded another one. He's here with us. I just finished interviewing him, and the investigation continues.
The arrest came early Wednesday morning when the police got a report of a woman who raised the alarm at Nsirim Motel in the Rumokoro area of the city. It attracted the hotel management, who then reported to the police.
I'm so happy that, this is just not speculations. Like, they keep asking social media, are you sure it's the truth? Have they caught anyone and all that? It's not very safe anymore in Rivers State. Even to step out of your home in the early hours as we used to do, 7 a.m., we don't feel safe to do that anymore. It's scary.
As well as stepping up their efforts to find the killer, women are also asking the authorities for a task force to monitor hotels and ensure that proper standards and procedures are followed. Karina Igonikon, BBC News, Port Harcourt.
Let's now go to Abuja and speak to Faith Nwadeshe, a women's rights activist. Thank you so much for speaking to us. What's your reaction to the news of the recent killings in Port Harcourt?
I was very outraged. I was very angry when I saw that report. Unfortunately, we see that women are being targeted again in another way. It's happening, and the law enforcement agents are not doing anything about it. They wait until people have to cry out before they take action. So it's a pity that we have this happening in 21st century in Nigeria. I'm very angry about it. Every Nigerian is angry about it, and we really need to get the authorities to begin to work and bring a stop to this.
Why do you think the authorities seem to have taken some time to deal with this matter?
That's because of the fact that we have porosity within our security architecture in the country. We've been complaining about insecurity everywhere, and now it's coming to bear that people can no longer go out in places where they feel safe. You can't even take a taxi and feel safe. In Abuja, it's either you're taking a taxi or you're getting robbed in it, and then in Port Harcourt, you're going to hotels and people are getting killed. That's because simple security measures, people don't take that into consideration. For instance, before you go into a hotel, you're supposed to register. Hotels are supposed to have CCTV within their premises so that when people register, they put their telephone numbers. The hotel ought to verify the telephone number of whoever is registering right there before you give them keys into their rooms. But that is no longer happening. So anybody can go into any place and get away with it.
Violence against women remains quite an issue, doesn't it? Why do you think that is the case?
The reason for this is because increasingly we have seen that society don't take issues of women as important issues, things that should be at the center of development. We are seeing increasingly everywhere across the world, women issues are no longer considered. That's why you have more women coming out. And then when people don't take seriously issues about any particular people in a society, what it means is that we take them for granted. For instance, you have laws that are crying out for respect for human rights. We have come out to say women's rights are human rights. These rights should be respected. We no longer have that. Within our African culture, we describe Africa as Mother Africa. It seems like we're forgetting all of that.
Thanks, Faith Nwadeshe speaking to us from Abuja. Let's take a quick look at other stories making headlines across Africa. The President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has announced an urgent action plan to address the problem of gender-based violence. At an emergency parliament meeting, Mr. Ramaphosa said the government would make available more than $75 million for a range of social and legal measures. The Zimbabwean government is deploying doctors from the armed forces at hospitals to minimize disruption caused by striking health workers. They have stayed away from work this week to protest against what they say is the abduction of Doctors' Union leader Peter Magombei, a charge the government denies. Senegal's government says it will offer free chemotherapy to women suffering from breast and cervical cancer in public hospitals from the beginning of October. 60% of the costs for other types of cancer will also be reimbursed. The government has set aside $1.6 billion for the new treatment. Andela, often described as one of the best places to work in Africa, says it's cutting 400 junior engineer roles across Nigeria, Uganda and Kenya. The farm, which is just 5 years old, connects the best of Africa's tech graduates with Fortune 500 companies and high-growth tech startups. Let's speak to our business reporter Zawadi Mudibo in Nairobi. Zawadi, quite a strange story. A company making lots of money, but is cutting down jobs. What's going on?
Indeed, Salim, that is a million-dollar question and a paradox in itself. When Mandela came into Africa 5 years ago, it said brilliance is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. And therefore, it sought to bridge that gap. But I have a simple theory to this. No employer is going to hire you so they can make you a millionaire, but they will pay you enough so you can make them those millions. And for this, for Mandela, it's just business. They came in and needed these young people who understand the African tech ecosystem and are most likely going to be able to find the solutions. And at this time, they are thinking long term. They are thinking about getting even more clients. They have about 200 companies that they currently serve, and therefore they are opting to go for middle-level engineers and even senior engineers, regardless of how costly it's going to be.
Zawadi, briefly, so what happens to hundreds of young talent that's out there?
Well, Mandela says that it has been able to secure interests for hiring from about 60 African companies for its junior engineers. But also you understand that whether or not these young people get a job really depends with how aggressive an individual is and, of course, the competencies they have in that particular field.
Zawadi Mudibo, many thanks. This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Salim Kikeke. Still to come, South Africa preparations ahead of their opening fixture against New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup this weekend. Welcome back. I'm Salim Kikeke. The top stories this hour. A fire has killed nearly 30 children at an Islamic boarding school in the suburb of the Liberian capital, Monrovia. It's thought the blaze broke out in the early hours of the morning when the students were sleeping in a building near their mosque. There's anger in Nigeria as people demonstrate over the grisly Port Harcourt hotel murders, which have left 8 women dead. 3 people have been arrested. Now, just what is happening to Uganda's oil and gas industry? Over the last weeks, there have been reports of stalling after continued disagreements between government and its 3 foreign partners. The oil discovered in Lake Albert, a stretch of water on Uganda's border with DRC, was meant to accelerate development in the region after its discovery 13 years ago. 3 foreign corporations control 3 oil areas in the region: France Total, UK-listed Tullow Oil, and China's National Offshore Oil Corporation. But this week, Total said it is stopping technical work on the oil field and pipeline project following the collapse of a deal to buy additional equity from Tullow. Peter Okoche met with the Ugandan government minister for minerals and energy, Irene Muloni. He asked her if it was a mistake to involve 3 different foreign-owned companies.
Getting 3 companies on board is not a mistake, because we've even now got more. There are already 2, Total, Oranto Petroleum from Nigeria, Ama Energy from Australia. They are currently doing exploration. We've recently launched a second bidding round. We want to attract more companies to come on board because only 10% of the Albertine Graben has been licensed. The rest of the area is up for other investors to come on board.
Isn't this squabble between these 3 companies, it's already beginning to affect your country, because recently you projected that you were going to get some money from the taxes from these companies to shore up some of the shortfalls from your budget. Now that money is not coming. Tullow has not paid almost 600 billion shillings in tax to your government and can't pay because they're looking for money to continue with this project.
The arrangements that we have with these companies is that they go and marshal resources so that they can invest into the production, but they also have to do that in accordance with the laws. So when a transaction like that is being undertaken, there are laws. Of course, as a country, any delays also impact on us. We would like the timelines that we had put for Fast Oil. We don't want any further delays. We were looking at Fast Oil 2022, but with a delay in the final investment decision, it means now we are sliding into 2023.
Do you think Ugandans are now beginning to, think to themselves, probably this government is not the one that is going to produce this oil. They don't have the capacity to see this project to the end.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, all Ugandans are keen to make sure that this oil is a blessing.
Oh, of course they're keen, but the government is not showing that it can fulfill this project.
No, government has shown a very clear path, by the way. Right from the beginning, the laws that were in place at that time had to be put on hold until we came on board with new laws, because every Ugandan wants to partake of this oil. It belongs to all of us Ugandans. So the processes that we undertake to make sure that this resource is a blessing and not a curse is what has taken government of Uganda that extra care and caution.
Indeed, oil has been a curse to many countries on the continent. We see what's happening in Nigeria, what's happening in Angola. What has the Ugandan government put in place to make sure that this is not the case once actual production and sales begin?
We now have a petroleum authority of Uganda for regulation. It's the one that is going to follow up these companies in complying with the laws, with the rules and the regulations. We have our national oil company, which has also been set up to carry out the commercial aspects on behalf of the government of Uganda in partnership with these. So that is why I can confidently and comfortably say, don't worry, all of us are keen to get this oil money, but let's make sure that we take precaution. We don't want this to be a curse. We don't want anyone to blame us that why did you do what you did?
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sport with Mimi.
Thank you very much, Salim. More Champions League matches today. It's currently half-time between Olympiacos and Tottenham Hotspur, with Spurs leading 2-1, who have traveled to Greece for the tie. Now, during the summer, last year's runners-up have traveled without Ivory Coast international Serge Aurier and Danny Rose at the moment. Both defenders have been rested ahead of their fixture. Spurs boss Mauricio Pochettino says he thought about his side's painful defeat in their last campaign a lot during the summer. Another one of the ties to look out for in the Champions League is Paris Saint-Germain, who host Real Madrid at home. PSG will be looking to improve after falling at the round of 16 stage for the past 3 seasons of the competition. Neymar is suspended for the match, and the French side are also without injured Kylian Mbappe and Edison Cavani. But as head coach Thomas Tuchel says, Cameroon international Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting could start. And let's move on to rugby. South Africa have named their squad ahead of their opening World Cup game to New Zealand on Saturday. And coach Rassie Erasmus has made just one change from that side that drew against them in July. Their captain, Sia Kolisi, who missed that match due to injury, will feature this weekend. And let's move on. Egypt has been banned from weightlifting at the World Championships, which begin in Thailand today. It comes after a doping ban, which was announced by the International Weightlifting Federation. And that's all the sport at the moment, Salim.
Many thanks, Mimi, for us with all the sport. Well, according to the World Health officials, snake bites are arguably the world's biggest hidden health crisis. One person dies every 5 minutes thanks to the reptiles. Most victims live in remote areas in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Our global health correspondent, Chilip Mzumda, traveled to Kitui County in eastern Kenya to meet a new team tackling these reptiles.
A tense community gathers. They've spotted a cobra up a tree in the heart of their village. Snake expert Geoffrey and his colleague from the UK, Nick, are in the area trying to catch snakes. It's been spitting venom for an hour. Slowly and carefully, they uncoil the creature.
This is the most common cause of serious snake bite in Kitui County. I'm okay. Yep, releasing.
Okay. And it's captured. The snake has been bagged up now. Geoffrey is now telling the community that they are safe for the moment from this snake. It's going to be taken away. But this was an enormous red spitting cobra, and I think this community will be very pleased that it is no longer in their backyard. It's been 4 years since a snake slithered into Marta's community. She was bitten as she worked on a farm, losing her leg and her livelihood. Now she is housebound, relying on her brother and his children to care for her.
My body was completely swollen and turned black. I was told my leg would have to be amputated or I would die. I cannot work. I just sit here at home.
Marta wasn't able to get to a hospital offering snakebite treatment in time. Her experience is a sadly common one, but it doesn't have to be this way. A pilot scheme is underway here, testing out new snakebite ambulances which can get into difficult to access areas quickly.
The biggest problem that leads to this loss of lives and loss of limbs is because of the distance and the duration taken from when the patient was bitten to when they got to hospital. So what we are trying to do with the ambulance is kill this time taken.
The race is on to get to a teenage boy bitten by a snake as he tended to his livestock. Cecilia and her snakebite research team reached the remote village within an hour.
We are suspecting the father.
They clean the wound. He's in a state of shock. But the team carefully lift him onto the ambulance and head to hospital. A couple of days later, Cecilia visits the teenager. Doctors here have seen more than 40 snake bites so far this year. Around half of the victims were children.
So Musyoki here still requires another dose of antivenom.
Unlike most hospitals in Kenya, this one does have a decent supply of antivenom, but there's a global shortage of these drugs which can cost hundreds of dollars. Musyoki's family don't know how they will pay.
So this here is one of the fang marks.
Musyoki has a long recovery ahead of him, but medics here have managed to save his leg, and he is expected to return to school. This community is very used to living alongside snakes.
How many have been bitten by a snake before?
But today is a first for them. They're learning snakebite first aid. This is such crucial work, showing the community themselves what to do in the minutes after someone is bitten by a snake to give them the best chance of a good outcome before help arrives. Communities like this one are lucky. They now have a dedicated team ready and waiting to help them. If this pilot scheme is a success here, these snakebite squads could be heading to other parts of Kenya very soon. Tulip Mazumdar, BBC News, Kitui.
Now, before we go, a look again at our top story. At least 27 children have died after a fire broke out at a Quranic school in Liberia. The blaze broke out during the night at a boarding house attached to a mosque in Painesville, a suburb of the capital, Monrovia. According to the police, only 2 students and their Islamic teacher managed to escape. Now, don't forget you can get in touch with me and some of the team on social media. I'm at Salim on Twitter. And that's all from the program. From me, Salim Kikeke, and the rest of the Focus on Africa team. Goodbye.